There is something in your life you've never fully processed. And right now, without you realizing it, that unprocessed thing, you know what? It's making decisions on your behalf. Welcome back to Healed to Lead. This is episode number 3. And if you've been with me from the very beginning, you already know what we're building here. So episode 1, it was about the womb, that formulative experience, right? That shaped how you see yourself and how you move through the world. Not only that, how most people in leadership positions nowadays, they've gotten so good at performing around it rather than processing through it. Then episode number 2, we talked about shame, how it doesn't announce itself, how it works quietly, and it does it underneath the surface of our decisions and our relationships. And it seems to come out at the absolute worst moments with such a precision that almost feels personal. You know what I'm talking about. And today, my friends, is episode number 3. We're going to be going into loss, specifically the kind of loss that never got handled, never got processed, and the way that that unhandled loss has a way of just stepping into the driver's seat of our leadership when we're not watching and then quietly driving around for years without us ever even giving it the darn keys. Here is something that most high capacity leaders, they've gotten just real good at. And I say this not as an indictment, but as an observation that I've made in my own life. And I've watched play out in so many of the lives of people that I deeply respect. We have become completely fluent in the language of I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And I don't think it's a deliberate deception, but it's more of an automatic response. It's that thing that we say because the alternative maybe feels too complicated to unpack on a Tuesday afternoon, or maybe too uncertain in its outcome to risk opening in a professional context, or maybe even too heavy to hand to someone who asked a question casually on their way to a meeting. We say it enough, we hear it enough, and guess what? Eventually, it stops registering as a choice, and it just becomes that floor. The default setting, that thing we go to, the answer that we give before we even check with ourselves to see if it's true. And here's what I want to name clearly today, because I really think that it matters, particularly for the kind of leader that is tuning in and watching this. Strength and unprocessed loss are not mutually exclusive. And that's the part nobody says out loud. You can be genuinely capable. You can be genuinely confident. You can be clear in your convictions. You can be effective in your role. And you can still be carrying something that was never meant to be carried for nearly this long, something that never got handled, something that never got processed, something that has been quietly making decisions for you in the background of your life while you were busy executing on everything in the foreground. It's the tension that isn't between strength and weakness. The tension's between what you project externally and what is actually running internally. But if nothing ever gets addressed, what's running internally, it's not just going to sit quietly. It's going to start leading. And so today, I want to ask you something. And maybe this isn't going to land for absolutely everybody watching this. Maybe you're batting 1,000%. Maybe you're genuinely in the clear. And everything that I'm about to describe doesn't reach you at all. And if that's true, I want you to stay anyway, because it will matter for somebody that you lead. But if it does reach you, if there's something in your background of your life, it can be a person or a season or a relationship or a loss, something that you didn't fully resolve the way that you expected to, I want you to think about that. Is there anything? When things get quiet, and I'm not talking about that productive quiet where you've got every hour of your day filled up with something useful. I'm talking about actually quiet. Does it show up? Not because you went out looking for it, but because it's simply there. The way that something always is when you stop moving long enough to feel what's underneath. It's a certain conversation catches you maybe slightly off guard, and the reaction that comes out is a little bit bigger than that moment called for, right? Maybe a thought surfaces and you've already moved past it. You've got your phone in hand, you've got a tab open, and you are changing that subject before you even consciously register that you were moving away from something. Does that ring a bell to you? Because it sure did for me. That's not random, not at all. What it is a signal, and it is definitely something that you should be paying attention to. I want to break this down in the simplest way that I know how to explain what's happening. And if you've ever had a laptop running 11 tabs that you forgot were open 3 days ago. This is going to make immediate, complete sense to you. Okay. Ready for this? When you have something running in the background of your system, of your life, something that is unresolved, something that never got, properly closed, what it's doing is drawing power. And it's consuming energy, just like a computer, even if you can't see it. Even when you've closed that app you thought, and you're not thinking about it, even when your screen looks perfectly normal on the outside, you're not looking at it. So you assume it's not there. But everything is a little slower, right? Things don't feel quite as clean. Decisions take a little bit more energy than they should. And then you're sitting there trying to diagnose the problem by opening more tabs and pushing harder and optimizing videos and doing all of this stuff when the issue was never the browser in the first place. It was what was already running. And the longer that it runs unaddressed, the more of you it costs. So my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer the fall of my senior year of college. And he was gone 5 weeks later. 5 weeks. That's from diagnosis to burial, which is a pace of loss that doesn't have any room for processing things in real time. It just happens and then it's over and then the world keeps moving and you're expected to figure things out. It was a whirlwind. I didn't figure out what came next though. I checked out. I fell off the map. A part of me, I feel like, died genuinely and completely in a way that I wasn't proud of. And I couldn't explain to the people around me because I didn't even fully understand it myself. But it's like you're physically present, but mentally you're entirely somewhere else. You can go through the motions. You can answer some of the questions that need to be answered. You can show up where you're supposed to, but not actually be there. Not really, just performing presence. You're just performing presence while something in you has quietly gone somewhere else. And the thing that felt true at the time was that if I actually sat in it, if I stopped moving long enough to feel what was actually there, that it would take me under. So I didn't do that. I stayed busy. I numbed what I could. I waited for time to do what I had always been told time does. But guess what? I waited and waited and waited and waited, and time didn't do that. What actually happened is the grief got a little bit quieter, which isn't the same. It's not the same thing as it getting resolved. Not the same thing at all. It stopped announcing itself loudly, stopped looking like grief, and then started quietly showing up somewhere else entirely. It showed up in my decisions. It showed up in my reactions, in the way that I trusted people, or more precisely, in the way I didn't trust. In the degree to which I didn't trust. Life started coming back together a little bit. Things were moving forward a little bit. From the outside, it genuinely probably looked like there was progress, but underneath, something had fundamentally shifted. Something about trusting outcomes, about expecting good things to hold up, about what it felt like to build something, knowing that it could be taken at the speed that doesn't give you any time to prepare. There wasn't a clean explanation for it. There was just a quiet adjustment that my system had made, a recalibration, if you will, that said, if something that big can disappear that fast, don't commit fully, JJ. You better hold something back. You better keep a hand near the exit. You better care, just not enough, and don't do it all the way. Okay? Starting things was never the problem for me. Building was never the problem. Pursuing things was never the problem. Full commitment was the problem. Because somewhere in my system, caring fully had been rewired to mean risking fully. Does that make sense? I didn't want to risk fully. I knew what risk meant lost. Risk meant I could lose that. And I already knew exactly what loss felt like. So distance for me became protection. From the outside, it maybe looked like I was all in, but from the inside, there was always this reservation, always a small piece of me that hadn't bought in completely, always a part of me that was calculating the cost of losing before the thing was even built. Yeah, I thought I'd handled it when I got sober. And getting sober was real and it was necessary. And I'll tell you, Lord, it was right. But the behavior changed without the driver changing. And that distinction right there matters enormously. You can change what people see without touching what is still running. Some people do it willingly and knowingly. The output looked different, but the source code was still unchanged. And here's the principle that I really want to name directly today, because I think that it's the part that doesn't get said clearly enough in conversations about leadership and about emotional health. Okay. Unprocessed loss doesn't disappear through time alone, through achievement, or through staying busy, through any of those things that we reach for when the alternative, when it feels too costly. It keeps running. And what keeps running keeps leading. It leads your decisions about who to trust. It leads your reactions in high stakes moments. It leads your level of commitment and the invisible ceiling you put on how much you care about outcomes, because caring fully means risking fully, right? And you already know what full risk can cost. It looks like caution from the outside. It feels like wisdom from the inside. But it is actually something that never got handled, still making choices on your behalf. And it's been doing it longer, guarantee you, than you've been aware of. How much of what you've been calling caution is actually unprocessed pain? How much of it? How much of what feels like discernment is actually protection? How much of your leadership calculus has been quietly shaped for longer than you realize by a loss that you never fully handed over? How much? I want to let you know what the research tells us about why this happens. And I want to be so precise about this because I found that understanding the mechanism, it really can give people the genuine permission to stop blaming themselves for something that their brain was actually designed, actually made to do. When you experience a significant loss, particularly one that's sudden or traumatic or unprocessed, our brain, housed in the amygdala, encodes that experience differently than it encodes ordinary memories. It doesn't simply store the facts of what happened. It stores the emotional signature of it, the felt weight of it, the danger signal that said, this is what devastating looks like, baby. And it keeps that signature active and ready, scanning every subsequent experience for anything that resembles that pattern. This is why certain conversations feel disproportionately charged. Okay? Why certain situations produce a response that seems larger than the moment actually warrants. Your system isn't responding to what's in front of you right now. What it's doing is it's responding to a pattern that it learned from something that happened years ago. A pattern that it was designed to protect you from. It doesn't ever want you to experience that again. It doesn't ever want you to experience that pain. Researchers describe this as emotional residue. And I find that term helpful because residue is exactly the right image. It's what remains when something significant happens and isn't fully processed. And it doesn't evaporate on its own. It just settles into the system and it begins shaping behavior from underneath, below the level of conscious decision making. There is something else that neuroscience has really documented specifically around grief, and I want to go into that. The neural pathways associated with a significant person or relationship, they remain active even after the person is gone, which is part of why the loss surfaces when things get quiet rather than when you're moving. Do you understand that? Because our brain, the default mode network, which activates during rest and it activates during reflection, it keeps returning to what is unresolved, keeps orienting towards something no longer there to receive it. You're not weak for this. You're not broken by it. Your brain's doing exactly what it's designed to do. It just hasn't been given what it needs in order to do its recalibration. Let it recalibrate. The same neuroplasticity, okay, that same system, that same repetitive nature that wired the response can wire a new one. I promise you. That's the cool thing about our brains. Our brains can genuinely form new associations, new defaults, new patterns, but it requires bringing what has been running in the background into the light. You have to process it rather than manage it. You have to move through it rather than perform around it. You can't just put it in the background and expect it to go away. This is where faith meets. I want to go into this, not as something that you say in general direction of pain and then move past, but as the deepest and most structurally true thing that I know about what God actually does with what we have been carrying for too long. Psalm 34:18. And I want you to hear this slowly because I think most of us, we've read past it. Says the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Not the version of yourself that is performing, not the composed, competent, keeping it all together version that you present from the platform or across the conference table. That brokenhearted one, the real one, that real version of you, the one that you've been carefully keeping out of the professional conversation because you weren't sure if it even had its place there. That is the one that he is near to, not eventually near to, not near to once you've cleaned everything up and you've got everything on the right road. He's near to you now, in the middle of it, in the specific unresolved weight of it, in the version of you that most of the room has never seen. And 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, where Paul is writing from inside his own unresolved pain, his own thorn that was never removed, his own thing that didn't resolve the way that he asked it to. He says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And I want to be precise about what weakness means here, because it's not about weakness as a permanent identity, not weakness as something to be managed or minimalized. Okay? Weakness as honesty, the willingness to say out loud, I haven't handled this on my own and I am done pretending that I have. That is the admission that he meets. Not the performance, not the version that has it together, the real version. Avoiding what you're carrying doesn't protect you from it. It simply leaves it in the driver's seat. So what does this actually look like in real life? Let's talk about this as a real framework for the kind of leader who needs to know what to do with what they've just recognized. You ready for this? The first thing we do, step 1, we have to name it accurately. We have to name it accurately. Not, I've been stressed out lately. Not, I've been carrying a lot right now. That doesn't do anything. It has to be a specific loss, a specific person, a specific season, a specific outcome that didn't go the way that you believed it would. Name it by what it actually is. Not a softened version of it. Vague acknowledgement doesn't move anything. Precision does. And the moment that you say, this is the specific thing that I've been carrying, and this is specifically what it costs me, something in the system begins to shift. But you have to name it clearly. Step number 2. Stop explaining it away. Leaders are so good and so well equipped at rationalizing what they feel, finding the framework that makes the feeling make intellectual sense without requiring them to actually feel it. It happened a long time ago, man. Other people have gone through far worse, man. Far worse, man. I thought I'd already dealt with this, man. Right? If it was still showing up in your decisions and your reactions and your level of commitment, it hasn't been dealt with. Promise you. And explaining it away doesn't resolve it. It just gives you a reason to stop looking at it. And if it's still there, it still matters. And the length of time that's passed doesn't resolve that. It doesn't reduce that at all. You understand me? Okay, good. Step number 3, bring it into honest relationship. This is the one that every high capacity independent leader resists most. And it's the one that matters the most, because I can promise you, isolation is the exact environment in which unprocessed loss thrives and continues to run. It does not resolve in silence. It does not move through private performance or through solitary discipline or through figuring it out on your own in the early morning hours when the house is quiet. Do you hear me? It moves in the context of honest relationship, or maybe a counselor, a pastor, a trusted friend, someone who can actually hold the weight of that with you without flinching, without needing to manage them through it. That is how it releases. That is how it stops leading. And step number 4, give it to God and do it specifically. Don't just say give it to God, do it specifically. Not in that general sense of I've surrendered this as something that you've said before in broader ways. In a specific, unpolished, honest conversation, just a sense of bringing exactly what it is into prayer. The real version, the one that makes you slightly uncomfortable when you say it out loud, the one that still has all the specific costs and fears and unanswered questions attached to it. What did it actually take from you? What are you still afraid of because of this? What do you still need that you haven't asked for? Bring all of it. Bring it. Not the edited version, not the version that sounds acceptable in some prayer request setting, the actual thing. God is not surprised by what you've been carrying. He has been near to you this entire time. Here's what I want you to carry from this episode, and I mean this not as something to feel good about for the next 20 minutes before the day takes over. I mean this as something that I want you to structurally embed into your system. What you have been carrying has been leading longer than you have given it credit. Longer than the version of the story you tell publicly, longer than the timeline that you've assigned to it, longer than the moment that you thought you had finally moved past. And it has been costing you in ways that are so real, even when they're invisible to everyone else around you. But that's not the end of the sentence. Deal with it. Name it. Bring it to the light. Don't do it alone. And you lead again. You do it clearly, fully, without the reservation in the back of the room, without that calculation running underneath every single commitment, without the part of you that's been holding back just long enough to protect what's already gotten taken. The culture within you, the one that was shaped by everything you've carried, every single thing that you've survived, everything that you've never fully processed, that is the culture that you will create around you. If something in the last few minutes named something you've been carrying, please drop it in the comments. I want to hear it. Or take just a second and put it on LinkedIn and share it with someone in your network who maybe needs to hear this today. I can't wait to see you guys in episode number 4 a week from today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. And we will see you soon.